Free agency is upon us already. It's going to change a lot in the NFL. It's Saturday, March 9th. So the legal tampering period starts in a couple days. Dad, we had a couple weeks there of after the Super Bowl where not a whole lot happens. And then the combine starts, we're right back into it. Kind of goes by pretty fast, right? The NFL season is truly year round.
Absolutely. It's almost like Christmas in March, man. So let's get on with it and see what happens.
Yep, and it's interesting this year with free agents because there's not so many good receivers, especially because like Evans, Pittman, and Higgins are kind of tagged, or Evans got a contract. But there's a really good receiver draft. How's that going to affect the free agency market? And then it's considered not a great running back draft, and there's a lot of really good big name free agent running backs. So it kind of played out pretty nicely to where, if you're a running back that's a free agent, good for you this year. If you're a receiver, kind of sucks, but we're going to jump right into it starting with the quarterbacks like we always do. And there's kind of three, and again, we're going over like the fantasy relevant guys and why this is important especially for dynasty is, maybe you can make a move for one of these guys who's going to be put into a better position. Right now, someone's kind of low on them, but then they sign with this team, and then their value increases, or vice versa. They sign with a team and their value drops, and you want to get off of them now. So you have a couple days, you can make a move here for maybe a free agent that you think is going to get a boost, depending on where they go. So Kirk Cousins is the big name at the quarterback position, and rightfully so. It's kind of all over the place. It kind of seemed like a for sure going back to the Vikings. Now it doesn't really seem so sure. Dad, where's a spot you'd either like to see him or you actually think he's going to go? You can go with either one or both if you want.
Yeah, Atlanta seems to be the hot word. I'm kind of shocked. We were hearing like a week and a half ago, Kirk Cousins is going to Atlanta, and it's like, man, how do we know that already? Or somebody's leaking some stuff, but so I the Vikings need him. I think they need him because Justin Jefferson needs him. He doesn't need any scrub throwing him passes and stuff like that, and so keep Justin Jefferson happy. He's eligible for a contract. So Cousins has made a ridiculous amount of money, like well over $200 million. As a I don't know. I don't want to call him an average quarterback. I mean, he's pretty good. He was getting a lot of love last year, so excuse me. But I just have a hard time seeing him leaving the Vikings, and they're going to overpay. What does that mean? 45, 50 million or something like that. And, for 2 or 3 years. And Cousins was the first guy before Deshaun Watson to have a fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
Remember that a few years back? And no one had a cow. Well, they kind of had a cow over it, but Deshaun Watson, gets it and stuff like that, and everybody loses their mind. So,
yeah,
I'd be really crazy to think that the Vikings are going to go unless they're going to get Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that's a downgrade for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. The Vikings are in a spot at 11. Where they could take a quarterback as well. So maybe they're thinking about that. I don't know. I've heard a lot of rumors. I've heard like potentially trading Justin Jefferson away and moving all the way up and taking, I don't know. It's crazy. But yeah,
I did see some kind of trade on Justin Jefferson. Like they got 2 number 1s and a number 2 or something like that,
Yeah. And you don't have to pay him, and it's kind of, I know we're going off topic. It is a little interesting though, because it's so many receivers now. Look at this year's draft. 3 top 10 receivers. There's so many receivers that come out of college that are just so good, And so it's like there is an argument to be made for like not having to pay for receivers because there's just so many good ones out there. But in terms of Cousins, I think Vikings, Falcons are kind of the two teams that seem to be the favorite. I would like both, obviously, for Cousins and for the players on the team. Obviously, the Vikings we know, but Falcons, he gets there. You have Bijan Robinson to hand the ball off or throw to. You have Drake London. You have Kyle Pitts. Like that's a really nice. You have the Rams system coming in. Their quarterbacks coach from the Rams, their defensive coordinator. I would love that spot, and I do think the Falcons are going to make a push. They need a quarterback. They know how important a quarterback is.
Yeah, they do.
I would love both those spots for all the skill position players and for Kirk Cousins. So I think it's a pretty good situation for him. It's interesting to see if they're going to value him as a bridge quarterback. And both those teams, even if they do sign him, could take a young quarterback in the first round, and then they have him sit for a year or two. He is going to be 36 to start the season, or if they're going to view him as a 2 to 3 year solution. So that will be interesting to see in terms of the contract he gets.
I think he's a 2 to 3 year quarterback. So
yeah, definitely. The next big name in fantasy is actually Baker Mayfield. I personally think it's very unlikely he doesn't go anywhere but the Bucs. Like they just gave Mike Evans a bunch of money. It's like, well, why would you do that if you're not going to bring back Baker Mayfield and at least try to be competitive again? Do you see anywhere else besides the Bucs that Baker goes to?
I haven't really thought, he would end up somewhere else. I mean, there's just. And there's quite a few teams though that need quarterbacks, but between free agency and the draft, and I just don't see it. It's like you guys better pay him before he hits the market and stuff like that. And Baker's, the Bucs kind of, how do I want to say it? Kind of saved his ass. He was. Let's just think. He needed a prove it year, but it was between the Bucs and Baker, between the two of them, he's in this position. So
Bucs seem like they're in a spot that I kind of hate for my team, where it's just like, I know they won a playoff game last year, but they were lucky to be in a bad division where they could win it at 9-8. It's like it feels like they're going to be 9-8 or 10-7 every year with like Baker and Mike Evans and all these guys, but they're not going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl. I don't know. It's tough. But Baker had a good year last year. He was, he threw 28 touchdowns, which I believe was like top 5 in the NFL not quite. It was like top 7 in the NFL. So, I just don't see anywhere else but the Bucs really. Like, I just don't know why you would give Mike Evans all that money. And Todd Bowles is not a coach that, he's kind of a year-to-year guy. Like he needs to win, and if they have a bad season, he's probably gone. So,
the Bucs last year, that was their salary cap hell year.
Mm-hmm.
They were 50, 60 million in the salary cap hole, and they did it for 1 year. And they still made the playoffs, so they still had quite a few older guys on there from their Super Bowl winning days, defensively and stuff like that. So, I think Baker, he's kind of loved there. I've always liked the guy. He kind of gets trashed a little bit. I don't know, because he's number 1 draft pick, or he's kind of a smart ass sometimes. But I'd say I haven't really thought of another team that he would really go to besides the Bucs.
Yeah. Well, that's good for him. Good for Evans, good for Rachaad White, and good for him. So I think he could be very successful fantasy-wise there. Russell Wilson's kind of a late addition to this list that I just actually put on, just because they did officially cut him over the last couple of days. This is another interesting one. He's definitely like a bridge quarterback in my opinion. So I'm looking at teams like potentially Atlanta if they don't get Kirk Cousins. Teams like not Tennessee, sorry. Teams like Vegas is the other team, and then the Steelers have been rumored out there. Do you have a preference out of those three teams? Yeah, again,
yesterday,
Atlanta, Raiders, or the Steelers?
Yesterday, he visited the Giants.
Yeah, geez.
So I was listening to XM Radio yesterday, and Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller, and I don't know if I can use their names, but yeah. They think Russell, the best spot for Russell Wilson is Minnesota because of the coach. Because Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback coach, and that would be, his best landing spot. So it'd be interesting to see him go to the Giants. And I'm not sure if Daniel Jones is ready or what, or if they're ready to move off of him. I guess they can't get rid of him. They can't get rid of Daniel Jones this year, and financially, I guess I got to wait one more year. Steelers, my God, I think Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin, that's kind of seems like a good fit. Those three spots right there, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Giants, good coach with the Giants. So
yeah. I mean, I guess I'm looking at it as like teams. Again, I think he's a bridge quarterback. That's what you want him for. You don't have to pay him at all because he's getting a bunch of money from Denver. So I just think like a bridge that Minnesota would be nice. I mean, in terms of fantasy, I'd be kind of back in on him as like a low end QB1 because Minnesota always puts up top quarterback, whether it's Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, Kirk Cousins. So I definitely like that. Raiders is another interesting one to me. Sitting there at pick 13, I think he can go in there and be fine. I wouldn't be excited for fantasy. Same with the Steelers. Wouldn't be super excited. Those teams are going to want to run the ball, but I think in terms of the team, we can make them a little bit more competitive. So he'll go somewhere very cheaply, which is good for the team that's going to get him, I guess. And Ryan Tannehill is another one I think we should just quickly touch on. Do you think he has one more year in him as a starter, or do you think he's more of just a backup mentor quarterback at this point?
Boy, man, it's I don't think he got injured last year, didn't he? So
yeah, and then kind of replaced by Levis.
Yeah, I don't think he looked bad. You can tell the Titans were kind of circling the drain there a little bit as a team. Tannehill, I don't know, man. Commanders, I think there's a few guys that are going to be sitting, backup quarterbacks like Zach Wilson and
I mean, Commanders isn't bad. Like they're going to get a young quarterback. Commanders is not bad. Like they're going to get a young quarterback. Maybe he starts the first 5-6 games, and then depending on how they're doing, they move to whatever quarterback they draft or a team like that. I still think there's some value if we're talking dynasty here and super flex. Obviously, any starting quarterback's good. So I don't know. Like Steelers is another one. Arthur Smith, reunites with Tannehill. Right? They had good years in Tennessee. Obviously, that was a few years ago now, and Tannehill's older, and but I see that as an option potentially. Like if they don't get Russell Wilson, because they're not in the range to draft. I mean, they're sitting at pick 20, so maybe they can get like a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix, but I don't think either of those guys are maybe ready to come in day one. And then you bring in Tannehill for a year, and they would probably still win 10 games. So I think there's potentially sneaky value in dynasty leagues. You can go out there and throw a 4th round pick maybe and get Tannehill, and it's like, all right, I get a starting quarterback even 6 games next year, and I'll take that. So, but yeah, it does seem like he's going to be a bridge / 1 year starter / backup. So, and And then there's other ones out there that we're not really going to spend time on, like Gardner Minshew, Tyrod Taylor, Sam Darnold, Brissett. These are guys to me that should be backups. And again, in Superflex Dynasty, they have value, but I don't think they're necessarily going to go anywhere that's going to be better for them. So the receiver class, we kind of talked about it. With the top three guys, Evans, Pittman, and Higgins being tagged or given contracts,
Locked
kind of
up.
weakens this receiving group. We'll start with Marquise Brown, who I still kind of have hope for. I still think he can be good. He'll be 27 this year. He had a couple good years there, like with Baltimore, and then he looked good in his short time in Arizona when like both him and Kyler were healthy, and then he got hurt. Kyler got hurt. So where would you like to see him go potentially that would make you excited about maybe in Dynasty? Okay, his value just bumped up. Any place in particular?
Maybe, I don't know. I was thinking maybe Cincinnati. They got to replace Tyler Boyd, but I'm not sure if Marquise Brown. I don't know. Cincinnati isn't in the market to spend a lot of money, but why not Kansas City?
Yeah.
Why not? Go
good.
prove it. Go prove it. Like a Juju Smith-Schuster, for 1 year, and they could. They haven't really had a deep threat since Tyreek Hill. So, and I think Marquise Brown though is a little more than a deep threat. So, I think we think of him, but
Kansas City would boost his value for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what if he gets to a team like, Buffalo? They're losing Gabe Davis most likely. They can throw him in there and he can play more of that deep threat role. Obviously, the quarterback. What about like a sneaky team like Detroit or something if they don't believe in Jameson Williams? There's a lot of good options for him. I don't think he's going to break the bank. I don't think teams are going to want to break the bank on a wide receiver because there's so many good receivers coming out in the draft. So, I mean, even Baltimore is not like out of the realm of possibilities, right? Like I know Lamar didn't like it when he was traded. So, like, what if he goes back there? There's a lot of spots for him that he could just kind of fit in because he's not going to necessarily be the wide receiver one on a team, and he'll kind of fit a role for a team, So I like a couple of those spots, but Kansas City, Buffalo,
maybe New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah, that could be a possibility.
They're moving off of Michael Thomas unless A.T. Perry was it the rookie last year is ready to step in and
And Rashid Shaheed's gone. Well, he's a free agent for him, so he kind of would fill that role. I mean, Indianapolis is another sneaky one. Like, he becomes Richardson. Anthony Richardson has a big arm. He becomes the deep threat for Richardson. Pair him with Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. Those are kind of three receivers that they kind of complement each other. When you think of an ideal receiver room, you kind of have the guy who's all around good in Pittman. You have Josh Downs who can fit in at the slot, and then you have Marquise Brown who stretches the field. So I don't mind that. Titans. There's a lot of teams, and I think most of those teams we're going to be slightly excited about him. So I think he's a guy that can still get back to being a top 24 fantasy receiver, and I don't think people value him that way. So I think he's like a sneaky go out there and buy. Calvin Ridley is another one that's a free agent. Finally, his rookie contract is done at the age of 29, I think. The age of 29. It's interesting because Ridley, it just seemed like him and Lawrence were just off last year. He still had 75 catches and 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Like, he still had solid numbers. Do you see him coming back to Jacksonville, or because they have to give up a pick if they do sign him? That's not going to happen.
I don't think so. I think they can live with Kirk and and who is it? Zay Jones and
They'll
Evan
bring
Ingram.
someone in, right?
Yeah, and they'll of course they'll replace him somehow. But I see Calvin Ridley going to New England.
Hmm. Interesting. I kind of
New
like
England,
that.
yeah, New England needs some offensive ball players, man. I mean, geez, they don't have anybody. New England, they got salary cap money. I'm sorry about the coughing, but yeah, they
New
need offensive
quarterback,
ball
maybe.
players. What's that?
They might be drafting a rookie quarterback at 3 overall, so that they need to. I kind of like that, and a lot of people are going to say, New England sucks for receivers. They have a whole new system in there. They have the Bill Belichick's out. I know
New coach,
Gerard Mayo. Yeah, I know Gerard Mayo is kind of part of the New England thing, but again, they have a kind of a whole new system there, so I don't think it's the same old New England. So I kind of like that as like a sneaky. He'd be their wide receiver one if they don't bring anyone else in, and he could have a solid. I still think there's value for Calvin Ridley. If you look at the consensus rankings on him in Dynasty, they have him as wide receiver 48, and he's in a group of players where you can kind of like get some value, like Keenan Allen's right there, Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown. These guys are all in that where people are like, they don't excite me. It's like, well, he's not going to be wide receiver 48 next year. He's going to be a top 24 receiver probably if he gets to a place like that. I like that.
Jets.
Jets. Yeah, I don't know what their cap situation is, but they can always manipulate that. They definitely need someone else, right? Like who's their wide receiver two? Yeah. Maybe a team like the Bears, if they want to bring in, I don't know how he fits well with like DJ Moore, but if they want to bring in another weapon, if they're going to take Caleb Williams, surround him with weapons. Again, a lot of spots where Ridley's going to go potentially. He's going to be the 1 or 2 on the team. So, yeah, and I don't see him coming back to Jacksonville. I think the fact that I think they have to give him a second or a third if they like do something else, but there's no way they're going to pay him and give up a second round pick for him. I just don't see that happening.
Is that to Atlanta then?
Yeah, that'd be
That's to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the heck with that.
Yeah. Gabe Davis is another one. He's kind of like a poor man's Ridley a little bit. He did. Unfortunately for Gabe Davis, like, where can he possibly go? That's a better situation over the last few years than the second wide receiver for the Bills and Josh Allen. There's like nowhere he can go. Like maybe he goes to, we always throw it out there, Kansas City, and he just becomes a better MVS, but I still don't think he's going to be like start worthy in fantasy football, like in Dynasty. So like, he was literally the wide receiver 2 for one of the best offenses and best quarterbacks over the last 2 years. And I don't think he got over like 700 yards. Like, can he go anywhere else to increase? Oh, he did go over. Sorry. He had over 800 and 750. So can he go anywhere else? Yeah. It's not anything to write
for such a prolific offense, and I'm one of the guys that got suckered into Gabe Davis. I think he's on my dynasty team, and after the big playoff, you get 3 or 4 touchdowns in one playoff game a few years back. Oh my God, he's ascending. He's going to the next level. All this other jazz, and I got sucked into it, and the guy, it's not working.
He's fine for an NFL team. For an NFL team, he has value. For fantasy, he doesn't. So
I think Atlanta needs some more wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about, I guess, the offensive coordinator in Atlanta said, we're going to run 3 wide and stuff like that. And, they don't, after what was it, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who else they got? I mean, that's the way it's been for a couple of years. So, they need some more Need some more guys who can catch the ball.
Yeah. And again, he's super valuable for what the Rams get him. That's a pretty solid spot. Like that'd be great for the Rams to kind of like pair him with Puka and Cooper Kupp, and then you have this guy stretching the field. There's a couple like Dallas maybe. I know Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is still there, so maybe that doesn't work out necessarily. But there's a couple teams out there that can definitely use him. Again, like a team like Baltimore or Detroit, where they're trying to, good offenses, but I still think they need help as like a third pass catcher for the team or something, a guy that can stretch the field. So I just think for fantasy, there's just not a lot of hope or value there. But I think like a sneaky team like that we're not expecting is going to potentially get him. A team like the Rams or Jacksonville or even Indianapolis again, where it's like, yeah, these teams could use that field stretcher. In terms of other receivers, I mean, Tyler Boyd, we don't have to spend too much time on him. I kind of see him going to a team with an established quarterback that needs, again, we'll throw out the Chiefs. Like if he goes to the Chiefs, I don't think he's necessarily going to go anywhere where he's going to be like, oh, this fantasy stud. He is who he is. But a team like that kind of needs that reliable pass catcher, whether he's their third guy or second, probably their third guy. A team like that I can see, maybe New Orleans, again, Kansas City, even a team like Philadelphia where he's just behind A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and provides that safe third option you can rely on. Any thoughts about Tyler Boyd? He's kind of done in terms of fantasy, I think, though.
Maybe Pittsburgh or
yeah.
I could see him sticking in the AFC North there, and he just got rid of Allen Robinson, and they need somebody. I'd say the Steelers. They need some more wide receiver production. I think. I know they got the two younger guys, but.
Yeah,
somebody who's a little more consistent catching the ball, or
and another one is Tennessee because they just hired Cincinnati's offensive coordinator. So I can easily see him. And who do they have? Like besides, I think Hopkins is still there, but Hopkins, Treylon Burks, they could use a Tyler Boyd on that team, and again comes from that same system. So. I kind of like that one too. But yeah, nowhere too exciting. And again, there's other ones out there. Darnell Mooney, Rashid Shaheed, Josh Reynolds, Curtis Samuel, all like players that will have a role on a team, DJ Shark. But for fantasy purposes, I don't think they're really gonna do anything there. The running backs, a bunch. So Saquon Barkley is kind of the headliner here, but there's a lot of top fantasy names. Saquon. The Giants didn't tag him. I think, and for any one of these running backs, really, I think Minnesota is kind of a sneaky spot for a running back. They got rid of Alexander Mattison. They have a really good offense. Now, they're not going to want to necessarily run the ball a whole lot, but they're going to pass the ball a lot, and so they're going to probably want a running back that can catch a guy like Pollard or Barkley or even Josh Jacobs. But I think Minnesota – for like any of these top running backs, any of these running backs really is a spot I'd like to see one of these guys go to. And I think all of them, either their value stays the same or increases. So any thoughts for Saquon?
Well, off the top of my head, I think of three teams that need running backs. The Chargers, the Cowboys, and the Eagles.
Cowboys seem like a spot for him, for sure.
Eagles?
No, the Cowboys seem like
you don't think
Jerry Jones. No, I'm saying all those are good. I'm saying the Cowboys feel like the spot for him. Like Jerry Jones loves running backs. He's kind of a star running back still. But go ahead.
Yeah. So that's teams, that I think need running backs they're gonna have to dip into the free agent pool. Chargers. I was thinking somebody else, but when we talk about them, I'll mention them. But
yeah, the big thing with the Eagles is if he does go there, are they going to throw him the ball more? Because they're just not throwing. Even DeAndre Swift, who's kind of known for his pass catching, had 49 targets, not catches, targets. So that's not a whole lot. So I like all those teams, though. Obviously, I don't think he's going to go to the Chargers. I think they're going to go a little bit lower and then draft someone. Cowboys seem like it makes the most sense, to be honest. Like they want to make a big move, and again, he's one of the few star running backs out there, and Jerry Jones loves his stars, so that seems like a pretty good spot. Jacobs is another one. I think he goes back to the Raiders. I think that's the best spot for him. And if he does go back there, they're going to want to run the hell out of the ball. So,
yeah. I thought the Chargers for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, that's good too. I think the Chargers, both those teams are going to be probably top 5 in rush attempts, right? But yeah, I think either one of those, like we don't see a dip in his value at all. So, I mean, is there anyone else that can use it? I mean, just rinse and repeat, I guess, with like Minnesota, Dallas, Philadelphia, right? Kind of rinse and repeat with those guys in terms of.
What about the Houston Texans? I know Devin Singletary's going to go. He's a free agent, and and I know they got who is it? Is it Pierce? Damian Pierce?
Yep, Damian Pierce is still there.
And yeah, but and the Texans got like $70 million in cap space, so I could see them dipping into one of these running backs, maybe Pollard or Josh Jacobs. Obviously it would make the offense a lot better if you can hand the ball off a little more reliably. So to somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree with Houston. I would love that for one of these guys too. Just they come from the San Francisco background, want to run the ball. Yeah, I think Saquon personally can be a top. Like he could be the CMC for a team where like the offense is literally built around him for at least a year or two. Like he's that good in my opinion, and he's had some injuries. He's been on crappy teams, like. Kind of like CMC a little bit. Like I know CMC proved himself a little bit more in Carolina, but crappy teams and injuries, and then he goes to San Francisco and he's like potentially the MVP. I can see Saquon kind of having that kind of impact. So, is Derrick Henry like Baltimore Raven? Are we locking that up, or they kind of were in on him at the trade deadline and didn't make the move?
Yeah,
do you like the Ravens?
Yeah, for who? Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
Geez, yeah. I like Josh Jacobs for multiple teams, but
I agree.
He just kind of fits anywhere. The Raiders, they shouldn't let him go, but yeah, Derrick Henry, my God, he fits the mentality of the team, the running. And does Derrick Henry still have it in him? I think so.
Yeah.
He's not Derrick Henry of 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still pretty damn good.
He was second in the league in rushing. So
I know. But he wasn't.
No, I know.
Yeah.
He wasn't a game changer necessarily.
But
yeah. Yeah, he still had and second in the league in rushing was only less than 1,200 yards. So that wasn't what I think he was second. But I like him with Baltimore. I think that's a nice spot for him. I like him with Philadelphia because Derrick Henry's proven he doesn't really need to catch the ball to be valuable. Like he's the most catches in his career is 33. And even when he was having his big years, he was catching less than 20 passes. So a lot of times you do need catches to be that top 5, top 12 running back. Derrick Henry's proven he doesn't need to. So he goes to Philadelphia. I think that's a really good spot for him. He's probably going to rush for 1,300 yards. I still think he has one more year in the tank left. He's another guy. A lot of these guys, if you look at the Keep Trade Cut rankings, just so much value where these, people are kind of overvaluing or valuing age and like what it means. Like Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb. I know he's coming off an injury, but all these guys are like, they're old. So it's like, I don't really care if they can give me good production in 2024. I don't really care beyond that for basically any running back besides like Bijan and Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor and those guys. So yeah, I agree with that. The next 3 guys, again, I still see a lot of value in these guys. We'll start with Tony Pollard. Can he be the number 1 back for someone, or does he kind of need to go back to that role of like 12 to 15 touches where 3 or 4 of them are catches? Or do you think it was just, I don't know, the injury coming off the big leg and, the broken leg? And do you think he could still be a number 1 guy? Needs to be limited.
I see these next 3 guys, I know we're talking about Pollard. I see Carolina needs the Miles Sanders experiment didn't work. I know they haven't gotten rid of him, so but I can see where I could see Tony Pollard and the Carolina Panthers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a bad one. And being their number 1 guy, or kind of being like the splitting with.
Well,
Sanders,
it would be splitting. It'd be splitting time with Miles Sanders, and maybe that would be the role they both need.
Yeah. I still kind of believe that he can. This seems like, and one of the next 3 seems like the perfect spot for Minnesota to grab, because again, they don't want to run the ball. They don't want to give a running back 200 plus carries necessarily. Like that's not what they want to do. They want to pass the ball 70% of the time. And all these guys are good pass catchers. And so I think that would be a really good spot for like a Tony Pollard or, Austin Eckler, DeAndre Swift, where it's like, all right, these guys, we don't want to see these guys touch the ball 220 times a game, between the tackles. We want to see like 180, and then we want to see 50, 60 catches. And I think all these guys are capable of that. And so I think Minnesota is kind of the perfect spot for any of those 3. But yeah, I mean, Carolina could use someone. Again, the Texans, I think any of these guys could be good on the Texans. So, Eckler, do you think he's kind of the next one on the list? Do you think he's kind of probably should be more of a passing downs back, like maybe 115 carries, and he can still get potentially 60 catches, which a lot of value in fantasy football, by the way. Like that's really good. Like if you're still getting your 200 touches or so, but 40% of them are through the air. Yeah, but they don't pass the ball to running backs is the problem,
Oh yeah, that's right.
But Kellen Moore, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that guy, but anyway, so I don't want to get off topic.
I just see like 2019 Eckler. I know that's a long time ago, but 132 carries, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, 92 catches is not going to happen. But something like 70 catches, and then you get a combined 1,200 yards and maybe 7-8 touchdowns. Like that's still going to be very valuable. That's going to be a top 20 running back in fantasy football. So, but I guess my question is, do you see him more as like that kind of player, or do you think he can have a year where he does get closer to 250, 270 total touches, rushes, and catches?
Yeah, I guess we see. I don't know. He's not going to be, like you said, he's not going to be the 90 catches or anything like that. So, I would say, in he's going to be sharing time. I see him more as a 50, 60 catch guy and maybe
Yeah.
600 yards or 700 yards or something like that. So teams like I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need a second running back, and
I'd hate that for fantasy.
maybe Miami. I don't know. How long are they going to ride Raheem Mostert? And
Yeah, that's true. For any of these guys, we'll kind of lump Swift in there a little bit as well. Chicago is a place to let a running back could go to. Again, rookie quarterback. They have cap space. He could go there, and any of those guys would probably be the best running back on that team. In division for Eckler, Denver. Like, what if he becomes more of he's like the Alvin Kamara, and Javonte Williams is like the Mark Ingram for Sean Payton's offense. I think that would be intriguing spot for a guy like Eckler or Swift, or maybe not Pollard. And then Kansas City is another one. If you want to win a championship, you go there. They kind of replace Jerick McKinnon with a slightly younger Austin Eckler or DeAndre Swift.
Isn't CEH gone?
He's a free agent. Yeah. So he's not on our list.
Houston Texans, we've mentioned, and so
yeah. So all those guys, DeAndre Swift, still think he can be good for fantasy as well. All these guys that we're all down on, I think there's a lot of value in trying to acquire these guys for cheap right now, because I do think they're potentially all going to get a boost due to free agency. Devin Singletary is kind of the last one we're going to talk about. Was really good there for the Texans at the end of the year. He's like a top 10 running back the last 7 weeks or so. If the Texans don't make a big splash at running back, I kind of see him just coming back to the Texans, and I like that. Is there anywhere else that you'd be interested in that we kind of have a team we haven't talked about? Chargers is a good one. Yep. Yeah. And kind of being if they're going to run the ball, top 5 rush attempts, you're going to have value. It's not going to all be Devin Singletary. There's going to be 2 guys there.
Philadelphia,
I
Giants
are a spot if they
Giants, Giants definitely. There's teams that they don't have. There's teams that they don't have anybody at running back. I don't know. It seems that way. You'd have to look at their roster. We don't know what they think of young guys that are sitting in the number 2 or 3 position. But
I mean, we haven't even talked about, but Tennessee, it could be a spot because they have Tajay Spears, but I don't know if he's the workhorse. You pair him with the Devin Singletary or something, and
somebody mentioned. I think the general manager mentioned that Tajay Spears is the man, or he has the ability, or something like that. So it sounds like. Sounds like he's going to be getting a lot of carries this fall.
Yeah, we'll see. If there's a value there, though, they're going to take someone for sure. There's other running backs out there, that could make a difference. Like a Gus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, Antonio Gibson's a guy I like maybe throwing a 3rd or 4th round dynasty rookie pick at. And if he becomes a pass catcher for he can kind of lump him in with an Austin Eckler, not as good necessarily, but younger, and could just be a catch 60 balls. So there's other guys out there for sure. Tight ends, there's not a whole lot to talk about here, to be honest. Hunter Henry signed, who's probably one of the top 2 free agent tight ends. Gerald Everett's a tight end. Yeah, Dalton Schultz signed. Jonnu Smith signed. So we've already had a few already signed. Is there anyone, Gerald Everett, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, any of these guys do anything for you, or just kind of
Not really, but they're going to end up on teams, as the as second tight ends and stuff like that. Chargers need a tight end, so I don't know. We'll see. I know there's probably some teams that need them. Chargers need a lot of players. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to suit up and play on the field, but that ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's it's just no one that's I'm going to be super excited about here. So, but yeah, that's it. It's exciting times. I'm sure we're going to make a episode next week recapping free agency and what's happened and risers and fallers. So, um, any last words there, Dad? What time does it start? Monday at 12.
Monday
Eastern?
at noon Eastern time, so that's the legal tampering period. So it'll start, your phone will start blowing up. It'll start happening, and I know on XM radio they talk. I've referenced them a couple times. They say, the first week, first 3 to 5 days, there's like a pool of money each team has,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like they spend it early. So that doesn't mean there's not good players who don't come in later in free agency and stuff like that. But some guys, they overestimate the market and they thinking that, man, I deserve a big contract or something, and they end up don't have any. Some of these running backs, are they going to spend 7-8 million on these guys, or 10 million or something like that? Probably not going to happen. They're going to get 2 years, 6 million or something like that, or it's but anyway, and don't forget to set your clocks forward tonight, so it's that time of year.
Yeah, although everyone's just automatic, so now with your phones. But there's it's gonna be fun next week for sure. I wonder if we're gonna see any other guys out there like Justin Fields could be traded anytime between now and draft. Trey Lance is a sneaky quarterback that I think could be potentially traded. We'll see if Dallas is gonna want to give him up.
I guess he's from Minnesota, so
that'd be awesome. So there's going to be other moves that we're not even really thinking about, and they happen potentially. So, but we will finish up there, and we'll be back looking at what happened in free agency soon. So we will catch you guys then.